The United States continues to wait for Iran's response to its latest proposal to end the war that spilled into the region, including Lebanon, and triggered a global creation due to global energy crisis due to Tehran's de facto blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. The Trump administration expected the Iranian government to respond by Friday, but Tehran says it is still reviewing the offer and insists any agreement must be fair and comprehensive. A new private airline named Noor Airways plans to enter Pakistan's domestic aviation market. According to Pakistan Aviation News, Noor Airways' application for a regular public transport license has been processed at the Pakistan Civil Aviation Authority. The airline intends to start flight operations with a fleet of Airbus A320 aircraft, initially on domestic routes.
And dairy farmers in Karachi have demanded a 100 per litre increase in the official milk price, citing a sharp rise in business costs, 24 News reported Sunday. According to the Dairy and Cattle Farmers Association, dairy businesses can no longer operate at the current official rates because fodder, electricity, petrol and other expenses have increased significantly. And the Sindh government's 28-point list of restrictions imposed on Aurat March Karachi is a distressing example of familiar double standards. Women are celebrated in speeches and choreographed photo opportunities, and only for the state to recoil the moment they demand their rights. The organisers sought permission to march peacefully for women's rights. What they received instead was a document dripping with authoritarian anxiety. And the message could not have been clearer: women may gather, but only if they remain politically harmless.
Pakistan Telecommunication Company Limited, PTCL, said on Sunday that consumers may face internet disruptions due to maintenance work on a submarine cable between May 11 and 18. In a post on X, PTCL said, "A maintenance activity is planned on one of our submarine cables to repair a fault by the International Cable Consortium," adding that the work will begin on May 11 and may continue until May 18.
Maranj. A large-scale security operation against militants continued for the third consecutive day in the Shewa Tehsil and adjoining areas of North Waziristan, with reports claiming that 7 militants, including 2 key commanders, were killed during search and clearance operations. According to sources, several militant hideouts were destroyed during the operation, while security forces intensified actions in multiple localities of the region.
And the internet blackout in Iran is more than 2 months old, the longest on record. For millions who rely on being online to make a living, the void has been devastating, but some have privileged access through what's called Internet Pro, and that's causing widespread public criticism. The program, launched earlier this year, appears to be another weapon enabling hardliners and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, to exert control in Iran.
Libya's largest functioning oil refinery has resumed full operations after fighting over the past 2 days forced a shutdown of the facility. According to a statement by the refinery, Sunday's development came after an emergency was declared after fighting erupted near the facility in Zawiya on Friday.
District Council teams eliminated 100 stray dogs during a large-scale operation in Sultan Colony and surrounding areas at the direction of Assistant Commissioner Malik Iqbal Lang. The crackdown continued for the second consecutive day after the recent death of a 7-year-old schoolboy in a stray dog attack triggered concern among residents.
And Pakistan aims to generate 95% of its electricity from renewable sources by 2040, while achieving a 60% clean energy share by 2030, and, according to an official document outlining the country's long-term energy transition strategy. The document, available with Wealth Pakistan, and sets out an ambitious roadmap to transform Pakistan into a majority renewable energy economy by 2050, powering industry, households and transport with clean and affordable energy. As part of this transition, and the country plans to raise renewable electricity generation to 50% by 2035 and phase out or convert 14,000 megawatts of fossil fuel-based power plants by the same year.
Karachi traffic police have issued a traffic diversion plan due to the construction of a flyover at Azimpura interchange. According to the traffic police, vehicles coming from Singa Chowrangi and Karangi towards Shara-e Faisal will be diverted from Shara Bhutto interchange and sent towards defence.
Kim Soo-jin and her husband have set aside their doubts and embraced parenthood, joining a small but notable wave of South Korean couples having children despite the country's steep demographic decline. South Korea has one of the world's lowest birth rates, and the government has spent billions of dollars trying to encourage citizens to have more babies and cushion the worst impacts of a shrinking population.
Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif on Sunday said he and his Qatari counterpart, Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Jassim Al Thani, reaffirmed their shared commitment to support constructive dialogue in the Middle East. In a post on X, PM Shehbaz said he was delighted to receive a telephone call from my brother earlier today.
Israeli jets have targeted more than 10 towns in southern Lebanon as the ceasefire between Iran and the United States appears to be holding despite naval skirmishes near the Strait of Hormuz. Israel on Saturday killed at least 24 people in a wave of attacks, despite a ceasefire that took effect last month.
And an attack by armed rebels has killed at least 69 people in Ituri province in the conflict-torn northeast of the Democratic Republic of the Congo DRC, according to security officials. For more than 30 years, the mineral-rich eastern DRC has been a battleground for various armed groups, vying for control of its many mines.
Interim Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa has announced a series of government changes, including replacing his brother as head of the presidential office, the state news agency Sana reports. Al-Sharaa appointed former Homs governor Abdul Rahman Badruddin Al-Amma as Secretary General for the presidency. The post was previously held by al-Sharaa's brother Maher, an appointment that had drawn accusations of nepotism. A large-scale Harvard-based study has determined that regular consumption of blueberries may be linked to slower cognitive aging and improved brain health in older adults. Researchers analyzing long-term data from more than 16,000 women in the Nurses' Health Study found that those with higher intake of blueberries and strawberries experienced significantly slower rates of cognitive decline compared to those who consumed little or none.
And a truck transporting oil from Karachi port to Sialkot was snatched near the Commander City housing scheme on M9 motorway in the limits of Nooriabad police station in Jamshoro district. Sajid Jamil, a manager of the goods transport company whose truck was snatched, lodged an FEIR at Nooriabad police station on Saturday, narrating that the truck was shipping edible oil to Sialkot, but it was robbed by 7 armed men who were travelling in a double cab.
Pakistan Telecommunication Company Limited, PTCL, has informed customers about a scheduled maintenance activity to repair a fault in one of its submarine cables. The repair work, which will be carried out by the International Cable Consortium, is scheduled to begin on May 11, 2026, and is expected to continue until May 18, 2026.
The Punjab Food Authority, PFA, has intensified its crackdown against the adulteration mafia in different areas of Lahore, sealing 8 food units, imposing fines worth 700 rands, those on 5 outlets, and discarding large quantities of rotten and expired food items over violations of food safety laws. The enforcement teams carried out operations in Iqbal Town, Inner Lahore, Moulton Road and adjoining areas on the directions of Director General Syed Musa Raza. During the campaign, 11 food units were inspected, out of which 8 were sealed for serious hygiene and safety violations.
Israel deported on Sunday 2 foreign activists seized from a Gaza-bound flotilla in what a rights group representing them described as a punitive attack on a civilian mission. Saif Abu Keshek, a Spanish national of Palestinian origin, and Brazilian Tiago Avila were among dozens of activists aboard a flotilla intercepted by the Israeli Navy in international waters off the coast of Greece on April 30.
Sana stood outside the gates of the police station with her young son, clutching her hand as she trembled from fear of what people would say if she went inside. The 26-year-old had been subjected to 4 years of physical, emotional and financial violence at home, and now her husband was threatening to leak their private videos. What held her back was not fear of her abuser, but a sentence she had heard her whole life. Sharif Lakian Thane Nahi Jati. Good girls don't go to police stations. All passengers on the cruise ship hit by a deadly hantavirus outbreak are considered high-risk contacts as a precautionary measure. Europe's Public Health Agency said ahead of the ship's expected anchoring on Sunday off the Spanish island of Tenerife, passengers without symptoms will be repatriated for self-quarantine via specially arranged transport, not regular commercial flights by their respective countries. The European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control said on Saturday as part of its rapid scientific advice. Israel has deported 2 foreign activists who had been abducted from a Gaza-bound flotilla in international waters. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs says Saif Abu Keshek, a Spanish national of Palestinian origin, and Brazilian Tiago Avila were among dozens of activists sailing with the flotilla when it was intercepted by the Israeli Navy off the coast of the Greek island of Crete on April 30th.
And Aryna Sabalenka's French Open preparations have suffered a setback following a third-round defeat by Sorana Cîrstea at the Italian Open, and with the world number 1 now looking to shake off an injury before the Grand Slam that begins in less than 2 weeks, Sabalenka needed treatment late in her meeting with Cîrstea on Saturday before. She fell 6-2, 3-6 and 5-7 for her second defeat in 3 matches after a quarter-final loss to Hailey Baptiste at the Madrid Open last month.
In the early 2020s, the Belgian political theorist Anton Jaeger coined the term hyperpolitics. He noticed that in this day and age, politics seemed to be everywhere and in everything, but was not catalyzing any real change, at least not the way politics used to in the 20th century. The last century was an era of mass political activity, mass politics, driven by large political parties, unions, and macro ideologies. According to Jaeger, until the 1980s, political life was anchored by thick institutions that acted as a bridge between the individual and the state. But by the 1990s, post-politics had set in and replaced mass politics. Sean Strickland has won the Ultimate Fighting Championship's 185-pound championship for the second time in his career, defeating Khamzat Chimaev via split decision in a bout that never rose to the level of vitriol and threats of violence outside the cage that both fighters engaged in advance of the main event of UFC 328. Strickland won 2 scorecards 48-47, while Chimaev took the third scorecard at 48-47 in front of a crowd of 17,783 fans at the Prudential Center on Saturday. The cruise ship hit by a deadly hantavirus outbreak has arrived near the port of Granadilla in Tenerife in the Canary Islands. The Dutch-flagged MV Hondius arrived at the Spanish port early on Sunday, escorted by a civil guard vessel, according to data from the maritime tracking service Vessel Finder.
Bannu, at least 15 police personnel were martyred on Saturday night after a suicide attack on the Pehel police post in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's Bannu district. The terrorists launched their attack on the post by ramming a vehicle laden with explosives.
And Islamabad, Pakistan. In Pakistan, May began with streets in major cities dotted with banners and posters honouring the military leadership that, in the official telling, and guided the country's defences and led the nation to victory in the 4-day aerial war with India last year. At the Nur Khan Auditorium in the city of Rawalpindi on Thursday, and the Pakistan Air Force held a ceremony marking its achievements in downing Indian jets. In Lahore on Friday evening, and a government-organised concert at the city's Liberty Chowk celebrated the conflict's success in what Pakistan calls the Day of the Battle of Truth.